In 550 BC, the Persians established an empire more expansive than ever seen before in history. We know this empire as the Achaemenid Empire. The Neo-Babylonian and Neo-Assyrians previously had used Aramaic as their lingua franca due to their large demographic of Arameans. The succeeding Persians kept Aramaic as a lingua franca and standardized it into Imperial Aramaic in order to make it their legislative language. This means they used it in areas not only dominated by Arameans, but Persians, Greeks, Medians, Israelites, and Elamites as well. This spread the Aramaic script from Anatolia to the Indus Valley. By using this singular language to communicate between satrap governors across vast provinces, the Achaemenians found unprecedented success and efficiency in their governance. Here I must refer to cuneiform, as many of the famous Achaemenid governmental writings were in cuneiform inscriptions. We can see them in the first Charter of Human Rights, the Cyrus Cylinder, and the Behisun inscriptions. Both of these were writings that were meant to be displayed to the public. The Cyrus Cylinder is the world's first Charter of Human Rights, written in Akkadian to be presented to the people of Babylon. The Behisun inscriptions recounted the Shah Darius' triumph over a usurper, written in Akkadian, Elamite, and Old Persian, meant to prove his legitimacy to the Achaemenian people. This shows us a trend of cuneiform being used primarily for royal texts, meant to be displayed to the public and not for private dealings of the government. The script for that would be the Aramaic one. The new standardized script was the imperial standard of the Achaemenid Empire, thus giving it the name Imperial Aramaic. Though, to be more specific to the exact period we are referring to, Achaemenid Aramaic is a more suitable term. This is the script which spread through the whole of the Middle East and West Asia. The standardization of the Aramaic language and script saw the orthography refined to a more consistent state, meaning the spelling of words gained more consistency and overarching patterns. In modern English, we have an orthography that is set in stone. All of the words have a correct spelling and are spelled the same way each time. As well, there are patterns of spelling, like how we put an E at the end of a word to pronounce the initial vowel's name. It can be seen in words like ait and ait. This upgraded form of Aramaic was made more contemporary and diverse with the addition of Old Persian influences and loan words. The word data, which was used in the Iranian languages of Avestan and Old Persian, meaning law, was adopted into Aramaic. As well, the word ganza, meaning treasury, was adopted by Aramaic. The interesting thing about ganza is that its root word is still in use in modern Persian, which is ganj, meaning treasure. The largest collection of text in this script is found in the Achaemenid capital of Persepolis, Iran. These are the fortification tablets of Persepolis, of which there are 500 texts. This is a corpus of Achaemenid administrative texts that cover Achaemenid governance from 509 to 494 BC. They cover things such as the tracking, transportation, and orders of goods and provisions. The design of Aramaic is sharp, simple, and thin in many ways. Most glyphs have a few strokes and changes in direction. A light element of soft curves are employed along with many sharp turns. Glyphs can be as round as Taith, which is a circle, or as sharp as Yod, which is an angle. They don't get more complicated than Shin, which is made up of one straight line and two gently curved lines attached to it. Contrast this to the other Achaemenid writing system, cuneiform, which has always been made up of multiple straight lines. It was limited to straight lines in an inscriptional system, which worked off of pressing a stylus against clay, a stylus itself being a straight line. Only using straight lines limited them to the use of different angles, lengths, and different amounts of lines to convey different glyphs. On average, a cuneiform glyph has about 4 or 5 lines. Achaemenid Aramaic was freed from this limitation by being primarily written through the use of ink, through brushes or pens, against hardened clay or papyri. The Behisun inscription was even translated into Aramaic on papyrus. Though at times Aramaic was inscribed through the use of the stylus, especially earlier on as the Phoenician-styled letters were more angular and suited for incisions. The early Phoenician Aramaic writings were mostly inscriptional, and as Aramaic blossomed into its own shapes in the Achaemenid Aramaic form, the glyphs picked up curves from the use of brushing instead of inscribing. Sheen, for example, did not originally have its two soft curves, instead being only made up of straight lines, looking like the Latin W. A common design in Aramaic is the curve facing up, followed by a line going down, similar to the Latin Y. We can see this pattern in Dalath, Reish, Kop, and Beith. In all cases, the Phoenician equivalents had triangles in place of the curving tops, except for Kop, as seen in Dalet, Reish, and Beit. Lamad, which is a tall curve, was originally completely angular. Interestingly, all descendants of the Phoenician Lamad, from Latin L to Greek lambda to Hebrew lamed to Arabic lam, have maintained a similar design and sound, that being its rising past the baseline and making the L sound. The use of soft curves and long lines, however, is what really defines the form of this script. While in Latin scripts, full circles are common, such as in the cases of P, Q, B, D, G, O, and A, looking at lower cases alone, Aramaic has only Taith, which is a full circle. It could be said that Of, Ain, and Pe are half circles, which contribute to the circularity of the script, but the lack of full circles, accompanied with the abundant use of soft curves, gives the scripts a graceful form, where it is not circular enough to be called smooth, like the Burmese script, or strict enough to be called jagged, like the Phoenician script. The real specialty is this gracefulness in the sense of sharpness, as the curves are equally matched by sharp corners, and more importantly, the use of lines going below the baseline. In the Latin script, P, Q, G, Y, and J go below the baseline. The difference is that Aramaic lines fall deep below the baseline, creating a sharp look. The lines are thin compared to the square figure of the glyph within the baselines, adding to the sharp design. With these characteristics combined, the Aramaic script can be described as sharp and graceful at once, similar to a royal dagger, fitting its role as the legislative language of the greatest empire of the time. I would compare this form to the one of its descendant systems, the Tibetan script. In Achaemenid Aramaic, we see a beautiful collection of glyphs, which gave birth to some of the greatest scripts in history, itself born from 1,000 years of evolution. These glyphs are the byproduct of a rare moment of human unity, where the languages of many diverse peoples were tolerated, accepted, and advanced. The world shared a singular script, which did not necessarily belong to any one of its users, but instead belonged to all of humanity. The Arameans introduced the region of Mesopotamia to the Phoenician alphabet, and the Achaemenian governors developed it to its influential Achaemenid Aramaic form. Under the Achaemenid Empire, individual liberty and cultural diversity was a standout feature and ideal. In the Aramaic script and its legacy, we can see these ideals reflected. Around the end of the Achaemenid Empire, however, we can begin to see the divergence in evolution of the Aramaic scripts in the different regions and languages. This is how the scripts of Hebrew, Pahlavi, Brahmi, and others were created. The widespread usage of this script, accompanied by the symbolic roots of each letter, as well as the design, give this script an almost divine role in the history of Middle Eastern linguistics.